You know, being a doctor actually sounds really interesting. Oh, but that might be harder. Maybe I should be an engineer. Accounting's stable. I mean, I don't know. Do people like, maybe an entertainer? Or should I just be a rapper? Or should I just go out there and try to pursue my dreams of becoming a hip-hop artist or something like that? What should we do as a career? Let's explore this topic in today's video. How's it going, everybody? Today, hope everyone is doing well. And today we're going to be talking about how to find your career, or how to decide on a career or job or career path to basically pursue, because it is a very, very important question. I recently just made a video about how to find your passion, your hobbies, and your interests. So if that's something of interest, feel free to, maybe I'll put the link down to that video down in the description. But if you're brand new here, like, subscribe, hit the notification button right next to the subscription button, so you can get notified if I pump out a new video. I like to make videos on like personal development, self-help, anything like that, and about videos to help you guys find yourself. So if that's something of interest, definitely stay along. Comment how your day is going today, and let's get the video rolling today. So when you're thinking about your career path, you might be someone who's already working a current job that you're not necessarily particularly a fan of, or maybe you are a fan of that job, but you're just thinking about what are the other alternatives that I can potentially look into. Or maybe you're a young person who's never even had a job to begin with, so now you're trying to figure out what kind of profession you want to potentially pursue. I might make a video in the future about like specifically for college people, to just like how to decide on a college or how to decide on a college major. If that's of interest to you, subscribe for more, because hopefully if that does come out, then you guys can get notified and know about it. But back to the video, basically, I think I'll run through maybe about 5 different things to really think about when you're trying to decide what kind of career path that you want to go for, or if the current career path that you're already on is particularly the right career path for you, or basically to help you guys make plans or goals going forward. So to list out about 5 things that hopefully will help, I think the first thing to really think about, I think in terms of finding and choosing what kind of career path to decide, is a little bit more very obvious. Probably the first one is just to think about, what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? I know this might maybe sound common sense for some people, but I think the big thing is that at the end of the day, when you're choosing a career or job, I still feel that it's incredibly important to try to pick something that you're very passionate in, that you love, because I'm a strong believer that money is absolutely very important, but it's not really everything, and there's a lot of things in life that you cannot buy. And I might be making a video in the future also, because I'm always bursting with so many ideas about things that money really cannot buy in your life. If that's actually something of interest, comment down below and just let me know, so I can see if it's a fan, if it's an interesting kind of video to really do. But so basically, back to the video, I think is that, so the second thing I think that's really important to consider when you're trying to decide on what kind of career path or job to pursue, is also to really think about the lifestyle of that particular industry or career path. Because there's a lot of jobs, and in my personal opinion, I feel that you might really love the craft of the particular job, but you might not necessarily enjoy the actual lifestyle that kind of comes with it. And I sort of relate to this a little bit. So for example, for me personally, right, I used to work in the construction industry. If you don't know me, is that I actually really loved my time in the construction industry. I found it very fun. There was lots of outdoors time, you got to build stuff, travel around, but at the same time, sometimes even if you like the actual craft of the job, it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to like the actual lifestyle that comes with it. And that's actually one of the reasons I ended up kind of making the change with construction. It was because even though I really love the actual job itself, if you've worked in the construction industry, maybe you can relate to it. But basically, when you have a job that you have to wake up super early, like we're talking about not even just wake up, to physically show up to work at like 6-7 a.m. in the morning, and you possibly have to wake up 5 a.m. sometimes to 6 a.m. even on a regular basis, and you have incredibly super long hours on top of that, I realized that it could take a little bit of a toll on you. All of the very long hours, the lifestyle, when you don't have a lot of work-life balance. There are many industries that maybe you love the actual craft, but maybe the hours are very long. Maybe the hours are very all over the place. Maybe it involves lots of traveling. Maybe you prefer to just settle in. And sometimes it might even be a location reasons. Maybe this job, requires so you can only work that particular job in a very specific location, and maybe you do or maybe you don't like that particular location. I know, for example, like if let's say you want to work in tech startups, a lot of tech startups are probably going to be in Silicon Valley in New York City, but you maybe are not someone who's necessarily a fan of living in the Silicon Valley in New York City where it's expensive. If you want to work in film and entertainment, it's probably going to be mostly New York City, LA, and Atlanta, or otherwise, basically the idea is big cities. On another hand, you might be interested in something maybe like chemical engineering or doing something in oil. A lot of oil jobs actually work, like petroleum engineering, for example. A lot of these jobs are located a little bit in very remote places, like in the middle of nowhere. Places where people actually get oil. A lot of, not even suburbs, but just truly like rural parts of the world. And so again, that's something to really think about, is just the lifestyle. How much travel is involved, the typical start time, the end time, what your daily task is going to be like. Just something to really think about when you're picking your job and profession. Okay. And then the third thing I think that's very important to think about when you're deciding on what kind of career path you want to pursue is to really think about the typical culture, but especially the social culture of the job. Now, I know a lot of people might say something like, obviously whenever you join a company or just a job in general, you might find a case where some people will say like, well, it depends on the company, and some other people might say something like, well, in every kind of industry, you're going to find people that are like this and people like that. But I think the general idea, at least what I like to say is that I feel like every single kind of industry or career path really attracts a different kind of personality type, a very different culture. And I think that that's why it's so important, because for example, some industries attract people that really love other people. Some industries are very extroverted, some industries are very introverted. Even if you actually, again, going back, really like the craft or find the job very interesting, sometimes it might not necessarily, the actual culture itself might be very difficult for you to kind of connect with. For example, I know for me personally, at one point, I actually dabbled a little bit into the tech industry. And I love the tech industry, I think it's really great. But one of the things I've noticed is sometimes the IT industry can sometimes attract a lot more introverted personalities. And for me, being someone that really enjoys social work, I prefer having a job that lets you talk to a lot of people. And even if I really enjoy my job, but if I'm not around a lot of the people that I enjoy being around with, it can make doing the job actually very difficult. So basically to really think about the culture. Is it a job that, most people are generally more introverted or a little bit more extroverted? Is it, attracts people that are generally more creative or more like uptight, more strict, more outgoing, people that are very money driven or very passion driven? I know that's another huge common one. There were many jobs that I actually genuinely really liked, but the problem is I felt that when I was working at a lot of these jobs, it seems like most people really are there just to make a lot of money, not necessarily because they actually really enjoy the craft. I know a very common one is investment banking. Now, I don't know about you, maybe you're actually someone that's very interested in investment banking, and huge respect and love to everybody that's an investment banker if you're watching this. But I think it's very fair to say that, like, if you compare something like investment banking to something like being a dancer, right? Unless you truly have connections, I don't think anybody pursues being a dancer for money. At least I like to think that. I think that if you're going to pursue becoming a dancer, you're probably going to be someone that hopefully is very passionate about dancing. But with with investment banking, where you can bring home millions of dollars a year or something like that, just making tons of money, there's going to be lots of people that probably don't really care at all about investment banking at all, but they're just focused about money. They care about money. And it's not to say that you're one of them. You might be an investment banker that's actually very passionate. But the point I try to say is I think that some industries, you'll notice a trend where there's some industries where people are more likely to really love their jobs, and other industries where it seems like everyone's really just there as a means to an end. That's why I think being able to fit into the social culture of an industry is very important. I work in entertainment right now, and I feel like the social culture in entertainment is so different than the social culture when I used to work my corporate tech engineering job. And not to say one is better than the other, but it really just depends on you, what you prefer, what you like, what you don't like. But it's something to really think about. It's just the culture. Yes, again, different companies attract different cultures and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, I feel like every career path still attracts a general personality type that would draw someone into that particular career. Okay. And now the fourth thing to really think about when you're deciding on a career path or job of some kind is to really think about the career potential, or rather just the trajectory. The future trajectory and potential of your career. And I think it's so important because there are some careers that you might be able to make a lot of money in initially, but you actually also cap very early in life. Where there are some jobs where you kind of pursue to a point where once you hit a certain level, you're kind of at that level where there's just like nothing else for you to do. You know, not to say I don't want to list a specific, well, maybe I should list a specific job, but basically there are some jobs that even though you might start out making a lot of money, once you hit a certain level, maybe like 100K, you kind of just level out. And it's also not necessarily in financial cap, but it's even sometimes in terms of just personal cap. You know, there are some jobs that, like, once you work in there for maybe about 10 years, you can basically learn almost everything you need about that job. So it's not even just a financial, but even on a personal level, you might find yourself in a case where there's just nothing else for you to do. You've learned everything you need, and there's just not enough fulfillment that comes in from doing that particular job anymore. Then there's also a lot of other jobs that maybe you start at a very humble ground level beginning. Probably the most perfect example I'm thinking of is maybe entrepreneurship. A lot of entrepreneurial jobs, when you start in the beginning, you might not only not be really making much money, but you might actually be losing money. A lot of entrepreneurial jobs, you can actually start out and actually, you know, potentially have to put a lot of money into creating something that you don't even know if it's going to sell. That's really the huge challenging thing. But what's beautiful about entrepreneurship, I think, is that some people really love it is because of the potential. Because compared to any kind of job, even though it's so hard, especially in the beginning, entrepreneurship is one of the career paths where there's almost no limit to your trajectory, to your potential. People have gone on to make millions and millions and millions of dollars. People have gone on to make billions of dollars. Think about all of the tech entrepreneurs. That's a perfect example. And again, it's not even just that, but even on a personal fulfillment or more of like a mental basis. You know, there are some jobs, like for example, in the creative industry, like let's say music, right? Where there's so much to learn, so much to explore, that even once you have one song down, there's always so many ideas, so many different kinds of genres, avenues to kind of really pivot into. So it's really important to think about, like, when you're choosing your career path, if you chose this career path, where can it potentially take you? So first is basically where would you be right now, right? If you chose this career path right now, but who is the most successful person that you know in your career path or that particular industry, and think about what is the potential that's potentially out there. And especially if you're still young and have a lot of leeway to be able to pursue it, I think it's something that's really important to think about. Okay. And then I think the fifth and final thing to really think about when you're deciding on your career path or trajectory of, your career path, job, or industry is to really just think about personal experience, and specifically maybe even just your networking. I think is the perfect example, and I think it's because chances are is that if you're someone that is already working your job, you don't really have to guess what it's like in your job because you already know what it's like. You're there, right? But even if you're someone that, let's say you're thinking about an industry that you've never even worked in, which is probably what a lot of you guys are thinking. Maybe you're thinking about going into digital marketing, right? But you've never actually worked in digital marketing. I think the big thing though is that sometimes you might have never worked in a particular industry before, but you maybe have worked in other industries, or even if it's like you've just done your own self projects, your own hobbies, your clubs, what you do in your free time. I think by really just thinking about your personal experience, about what you've done in life, you can really kind of gauge sometimes about what you do and don't like. And from that, you can kind of come up with factors and really write it out. And if you know me, I really like to write. I'm a journaler, this channel name. But because of that reason, that's kind of why I really recommend you, I think, is to really think about from personal experience what you've already felt like, what you've already experienced in the past, and how you think that can translate to what you really want to look for in a career. But also consider maybe doing internships or even just networking. You know, I think a lot of times it's also really important to try to be able to meet people that you can physically talk to. And in terms of where to meet people, that's probably a video on its own, networking. Comment if that's something of interest to you. But basically, I think what's really nice about networking is that there are so many ways that you can sometimes even just try to meet someone that works in this industry, especially with the internet today. You know, you can maybe try to find someone, whether it's at a networking event, whether it's like a family, friend, the father, parent, or relative, or someone that a certain friend knows. All sorts of different options. You can go to events, your alumni network, your club network. You can basically, as long as you have some kind of commonality with someone, I think that when you're able to just talk to people, even if it's on the internet, there are so many forums out there where you can meet people of all sorts of different professions and really network. You know, social networking. when they put the network in social networking. You know, LinkedIn, you can even cold reach. But I think if there's anything, and it's like what I say, is that, you know, there's so many things that you can think about in theory, and it's so important to do that. That's why I listed all the other points. But at the end of the day, the only way you're really gonna know what kind of career path or job is really right for you is to physically do it. You have to actually spend a lot of time, not just to think about what path is right, but also to physically do that particular path to really understand truly what it's like to be there. I had this in so many of the past jobs that I really had. There were so many jobs that I kind of thought would be super cool, but it doesn't mean that once you actually physically do the job, you're gonna feel the same way. And it really depends. And the reverse can be true too. You might find some jobs that, you know, were just very mildly interesting, but once you do it, you may actually fall in love with it, for all you know, right? So that's really what I think is very important when you're deciding on what kind of career path or job you can take. So basically, to really sum up this video, is that when you're trying to decide between what kind of career path or job you want to pursue, regardless of whether you've actually pursued it or not, and you think about switching, or you're someone just truly fresh trying to pick a job for the first time, the general ideas I think that you really have to think about basically is, number one is your passion, your interest. Number two is the lifestyle. Do you actually think you're going to enjoy the lifestyle of the job, even if you actually like the craft? The third is actually also is the social culture. You know, whether or not you're going to like the general people or the vibe or culture that's generally found within your industry. If it's more conservative, liberal, extroverted, introverted, passion, money driven, anything like that. The fourth thing to think about is your career trajectory. What is the future potential? Is it a job that you're going to cap off very early, or is it like something where the sky really is the limit and it goes on and there's always so much to learn? Not just how much money's to be made, but also how much you actually have to learn, the longevity of the career. And the final thing to really think about is just your personal experience. Not necessarily about at the actual job, although the closer to the actual job, of course, the better, but even just in life in general. What you've loved to do, what you enjoy in different people, what you admire, what you don't admire. Are you more creative? Not so much. Social? Not so much. Do you like to sit? Do you like to move around? You know, that kind of stuff. And then to network and really talk to other people. But the most important thing I always say is, it's very similar to my previous video about finding your passion, is that you really have to learn it by doing. And I think that's why it's so important to do internships, to shadow people, a lot of this stuff, even if it's just like to visit an office or go to the place where someone of that particular profession you're more likely to find. So hopefully this helps and wraps up the whole video. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe, or even if you didn't enjoy this so much, maybe just comment down below what your thoughts are, what you're thinking. Have what kind of career path you're deciding between. I'd love to hear them. Let's have a conversation going, and I'm always here. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, have a great time, and yeah, thank you guys so much.